All right, hey, how you guys doing? All right, I gotta make a video here. I just got back from the Douglas County Republican Party reorganization meeting. And this is it's kind of an interesting story leading up to this meeting, and then definitely interesting what happened at this meeting tonight. So the state GOP had sent out a letter to all of the precinct committee people here in Douglas County. And so basically, this reorganization meeting that happened tonight is the committee, the precinct committee people come together and they vote in new or the same leadership for the Douglas County Republican Party. So like a chairman, vice chairman, secretary, treasurer, and then 3 at-large people as well. So the committee people, their job is to nominate and vote in the leadership. And so last night, the state GOP had sent out a letter to all the precinct people saying that there were 20 precinct people that had violated the party's loyalty clause because they had signed a petition back in, actually, I don't know the exact date, but back in the summer, I think, they signed a petition to get an independent to run for governor. And so there was, we just had our governor race, and the incumbent governor was a Democrat, and then she was challenged by a Republican. Well, there was also an independent that ran as well. And for him to get on the general election ballot, he had to have enough signatures. So there were petitions that were being, brought around to everyone throughout the state to sign to get him on there. And so this guy, the independent, he kind of billed himself as like the more conservative Republican, even though he's running as an independent. And so anyways, 20 of the precinct committee people here in Douglas County had signed that petition to get the independent candidate on the ballot. Well, and that violates the party's loyalty clause because it states that people that are in the party, elected officials in the party, are only supposed to be supporting Republicans, and they're not supposed to do anything to promote candidates outside of the party. Now, so what happened then is the state GOP met on their loyalty policy committee, and reviewed the evidence and voted unanimously that these 20 people that had signed the petition. Well, let me back up a second. So the Democrat governor ended up winning the election by 2 percentage points, or less than 2 percentage points. It's like 1.7%. And the independent candidate got 2% of the vote. And a local newspaper around here, not here in Lawrence, but here in the state, had just written an article, basically saying, had all of those votes for the independent been, if the independent hadn't ran and everyone that voted for him ended up voting for the Republican candidate, well, he would have lost by 2 votes. And so, it's like after a recount and all that, who 2 votes is so close. Like after a recount, who knows how that pans out, right? And the Republican candidate could have won. And so anyway, so the state GOP, they met, their loyalty policy committee met, reviewed the evidence, and decided that there's 20 Douglas County precinct committee people that had signed the petition for the independent candidate, and therefore that violated the party's loyalty clause. And so what they did is they stripped those 20 committee people of any committees that they're involved on as precinct committee people, and also strip their voting rights effective immediately. So it meant that tonight for this reorganization meeting, they weren't able to vote. They didn't have any voting rights. And so You know, I did a podcast the other day with the Kansas Constitutional, and I spoke briefly on this. You know, go check it out. It's on my community tab. I post a link there, and I talk about this. Is that what was happening was that there was an attempted takeover in the for the Republican Party here, and that there's a guy that his name's Brent Hoffman was. Wanted to take over the party, so he was putting his people into the precinct places to run to get elected for precinct person. And if enough of them got voted in the primary election back in August, then he could they could vote him into the role of the chairman of the Douglas County Republican Party, which is what that meeting was for tonight, was to vote in the new leadership and to vote in Brent Hoffman. And but see, the thing is, like, Brent Hoffman is he's a con man. He's a liberal Democrat, and he's shady, man. He's been the leader of a really liberal organization called Justice Matters. He was a co-president of it. So, anyways, that was the goal, was that these committee people were going to meet tonight and vote in new leadership. So what happened at this meeting tonight is that you know, they started off the meeting and they said so the Republican Party right now is ran by a guy named Reese Todd. He's actually a student up at KU, so he's a younger guy, and you know, I wasn't happy with the Todds, you know, Reese Todd and his dad and their leadership during my election. I didn't like it at all. They didn't support me at all. But I know the bad stuff that's happening trying to get Brent Hoffman in to lead the Republican Party around here, and I don't want that either. But anyway, so he started the meeting tonight, Reese Todd did, and said that we're going to have those 20 committee people whose voting rights are suspended. They can do provisional voting, but we've designated 20 chairs over here, and they need to go sit in those chairs, and that was just for voting purposes, so that they can count their votes. Because when they vote, it's just a big, wide open, you know, meeting, like a town hall meeting area, and everyone's just sitting in there. Now, they are grouped, you know, committee people are up front, but there is supposed to be a strict procedure in counting the votes. This is important shit, you know, and so they wanted to have those 20 people off, you know, in separate chairs, so they could do their provisional votes. Because apparently, now I don't know this for 100% fact or whatever, I don't know this, but apparently the GOP right before the meeting started this evening had reversed that decision and allowed them to you know, reinstated their voting rights and all that stuff. The committee people reinstated their rights to vote and stuff like that. And now I don't know if it was supposed to be provisional. I was hearing all kinds of different things tonight. Like, I don't know if it was provisional voting only, or they could vote regularly. I'm not really sure, but I do know this. The Reese Todd, given the magnitude of that meeting, he could say, hey, you know, we need to figure out I need to be in contact with the state GOP. I need to sort all this out before we do this. So he could have done that. I mean, they could have made it so, you know, we're gonna suspend this meeting. But they didn't do that. They went forward with the meeting, and so they opened the meeting off by saying, we want those 20 precinct committee people that are doing provisional voting, we want you over here. And there was just huge objection from pretty much all of the committee people in there, like, yelling, like, no, you know, all that. And so he just goes, all right, meeting suspended. And you know, just like that, you know, the meeting's over. You know, the official meeting is over. The chair of the Douglas County Republican Party had ended the meeting. And what happened after that is, you know, is the reason why I'm making this video, is that there was just a complete takeover of the Republican Party by all these committee people in here, and it was the most appalling thing that I've seen. And I'm not being dramatic either. You should have seen the people in there. It was like a cult. It was like an absolute cult. I was in there calling them all out, calling them Democrat. You guys are acting like Democrats. There was my friend one of my friends who's a committee person stood up to object it and started trying to talk. Like anyone that agreed with what was happening in there got, their full, 3 minutes to speak. And everyone in silence just sit there and listen to him. But when my friend Linda got up there, who's a committee person, to object to it, they just were shouting her down and laughing at her and being disrespectful to her. So I was like, yo, let her fucking talk. Let her speak. What is this all about? You guys are acting like a bunch of Democrats. And that's what it was, man. They claimed that they were hijacking this party and putting Bren in there because they wanted to get back to Republican values around here, but it really looked like something out of a Nazi takeover. It was a takeover. So there's a guy, his name's Chris Berger, and he's a lawyer, and he immediately just steps in there and says that he's assuming the position of chair, and that the meeting is going to continue on. I'm in the back of the room now. I'm not a committee person, so I don't have the floor. I don't get the floor. I'm not a committee person, but I'm in the back like, yo, under what authority, man? You tell us what authority you're able to do this. And he won't do that. He won't say it. So he just gets up there and assumes control of the meeting and said, the meeting's going on, we're going to vote. And meanwhile, the Reese Todd and his dad, his name is Richard Todd, and he's been affiliated with the party for a long time and has led the party before. And then I think his brother's name is Mike, but they're all, part of what runs the organization, runs the party. And so, to them, the meeting's over. So they're like trying to clean, they're cleaning up, moving the chairs back in and stuff like that. And meanwhile, Chris Berger, one of the committee people, is up there saying, I've assumed the role of the chair, and the meeting goes on. And from then, me and some of my friends that were there, we're only a small group, man. There's like 4 or 5 of us. And we're out there just trying to raise as much stink as we can, and being like, "What are you talking about, man? This meeting cannot go on. It's been officially adjourned. It's been suspended. There's no meeting. You don't have power to do this." And some of the overall majority of the precinct people stayed there, but there were some that got up and left. And so when they get up and leave, man, I mean, all that has to be accounted for. Now the voting numbers have changed, and the amount of people there that can vote has changed. And we still don't know if those 20 people can actually vote on this or not. And the actual chair of the Republican Party adjourned the meeting, and some other random guy just gets up there and just takes over. And so they proceed to just hold this meeting like it was just a regular meeting, like they were in charge. They had all of a sudden just taken charge of the Republican Party, and they voted in Brent Hoffman for chairman, and it was the most just pathetic thing. I mean, you can just imagine the ego on this guy up there. It was almost something out of a movie. It's like, now it's all that hard work to get in there. We took it over, and that's my moment to shine. He gave some cheesy ass speech and invoked Jesus's name, which really pissed me off big time. But because he's a con man, he's a snake, man. And Brent Hoffman is. And so they elected Brent Hoffman as the chair, and then they elected all the other positions to vice chair, secretary, treasurer, and 3 at-larges, and they were all done unanimously. Every single person in there raised their hand unanimously, and for all of this. And a lot of the people, I knew a lot of those people. Some of them I had protested with, but most of them I knew were snakes. Even the ones that had come out and protested and kind of dropped off along the way that were there, I already knew they were snakes. They've been affiliated with this group called Kansas for Health Freedoms, the Douglas County chapter here, and they're all snakes, man. They're all snakes. So in fact, like Brent Hoffman, who's the vice president of the Kansas for Health Freedoms, is now the chairman of the Douglas County Republican Party. And now the president, supposedly, this is all supposedly, the meeting that happened tonight was not official, but also then the president of Kansas for Health Freedoms got voted in as secretary tonight. Her name's Rachel Price, and she actively endorsed and promoted the candidate, the libertarian candidate, the libertarian candidate in my race, Steve Jacob, and she's not allowed to do that either, so we're not done with that either. But anyway, so you have the Kansas for Health Freedom leadership is now the leadership of the Douglas County Republican Party, as planned. That was their master plan. And me and my group of friends, we were aware of this, and we had seen it coming for for months, and we've been trying to blow the whistle and sound the alarm to anybody that'll listen. And that was what's so disheartening about it, is a lot of the people that we had been friends with, that we thought were actual, Republicans, were voting for Brett Hoffman in there. And actually, some of them had even signed the independent candidate's petition that landed him on that list of 20 people, 20 committee people that they got their voting rights suspended. And so it's really disheartening to see that. And it really looked I'm not even joking, man. I don't use this word lightly, but it really looked like a Nazi takeover in there, man. It was mob rule. It was, they just steamrolled it. They just hijacked it. And, but the issue is, and here's what I want to see happen, because the issue is, every single one of those people there showed themselves to, be there to hijack the party and not follow the rules and do their best to take it over legally or otherwise. And instead of, the chair, Todd Reese, saying, when he said that the meeting was suspended, instead of being like, all right, it's suspended, we got to go through, we can take it up to the next level if we have to, find out what the appeal process is. But instead, they were planning to do this from the get-go. Chris Berger has been texting me the last couple of days, really suspiciously asking me if I'm going to the meeting, and last night then he's like, I don't agree with how these 20 people had their voting rights taken away. And he was kind of just revealing himself to me of who he was. Now, I didn't know the guy. I don't even know how the hell I got his number. I honestly thought he was somebody else until he came up and shook my hand tonight. And I was like, what's your name? He's like, yeah, I'm Chris Berger. We've been texting. I was like, oh shit, man, I thought you were somebody entirely else, man. I don't even know where I got your number from, man. But anyway, so we had been texting, but it was like an orchestrated thing. Like they knew what they were going to do. Like Chris Berger knew he was going to take over the role of the chair tonight to make sure that this meeting can go forward. And it wasn't a legitimate sanctioned meeting, but they all acted like it was. When they elected Brent, he went up there and gave a speech, and they gave him a round of applause. They elected they nominated and second, and then voted on all the other positions. And when they got elected, they all clapped. I mean, they acted like this is what's going to fly. And who knows? With as weak as the Republican Party leadership is everywhere, this might fly. It shouldn't. It shouldn't at all fly, but it might, if the state Republican Party don't step in and be like, whatever the ruling is about the 20 committee people, whatever that ruling is a side issue from what I'm talking about right now. If the state party needs to step in right now and be like, the way all you precinct people conducted yourselves and carried yourselves last night and clearly showed yourselves to be taking over the Republican Party like that, there are going to be consequences for this. That's what the Republican Party should do, I believe. Will they do that? I don't know, man. There's rhinos everywhere, man. There's rhinos everywhere. And so it could be that they're like, well, it could go through or whatever. It shouldn't. I mean, the official meeting was adjourned. There actually was one of the ladies that was on the, it was a state party, in the state party leadership, and she was also on the loyalty clause committee that voted on setting those 20, or removing the rights of those 20 committee people. She was actually there at the meeting tonight, and she spoke after Todd Reese had suspended the meeting. She spoke and basically said, this is, the meeting's over. The meeting's over. So hopefully she's got some weight. She can carry some weight. Her name's Cheryl Reynolds. Hopefully she can carry some weight when this gets brought up at the state level, and that there's severe consequences to all these committee people that stepped in and tried to just run an illegitimate reason and establish their own illegitimate leadership in this. It was a complete takeover, and there wasn't hardly anybody that dissented, but anybody that dissented or opposed it, they were laughed at, mocked, interrupted, shouted down, ridiculed. One of them was my friend Linda, and I took issue with that. I was really pissed off about that, man. Because these Republicans were acting like fucking Democrats, man. They acted exactly like the Democrats I've been fighting against for the last 18 months. They acted exactly like them, and I called it, man. I knew that the Democrats were taking over this party, and they proved it tonight, man. There was already proof along the way, but they definitely proved it tonight, and they definitely revealed themselves tonight. And you know, we'll see what happens going forward. You know, even if the ruling on the violation of the loyalty clause, even if that was wrong, and even if it was overturned, the proper procedure for the meeting was not handled tonight. I mean, it was handled by Todd Reese, and he adjourned the meet or suspended the meeting. But after that, it was just not handled properly. So aside from the issue with the petition being signed, the issue now for me is that these motherfuckers just acted the way and behaved the way that they did, and tonight at this party, at the party meeting to take over the party, and that now is what needs to happen in my mind. And it would be glorious, and justice would be served if all of them were stripped of their position, and they were all gone. I don't mean just Brent Hoffman and the people that were voted in. I mean all the committee people that were that took a part of this and were like, hold on a second, time out. There's obviously some confusion. There's obviously something here that's not right. We need to straighten this out. Instead, they just went straight forward with it and just, you know, consequences be damned and everything else. We're voting this people in. We're voting our people in. We're taking over this motherfucking party is how it went. And so all of those people, it would be just, you know, it would be justice if they were all removed. Because what they did tonight was wrong, man. It was wrong, and it doesn't reflect the Republicans around here, or it doesn't reflect Republican values, you know, traditional Republican values, and it was just terrible to see. But I'll keep you guys posted as we go forward in this battle, and I'll let you guys know, you know, what goes on. It could get really interesting. It seems like it's a really big deal. So I appreciate you guys checking out my video, and we'll talk to you later.